everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Facebook Live. I'm Julia Marvin, and I'm the marketing manager here at Jefferson Center, and I am so excited to be joined today by Jean Bogar. Jean is a senior care specialist for Colorado Spirit, which is our mental health and COVID-19 relief program here at Jefferson Center. And so today we're going to be talking a little bit about, that COVID-19 vaccines are becoming available and the country's beginning to reopen. And so we're having to adjust to a new normal. And, a lot of us might have some anxieties and worries that come with it. And so, a lot of times, sometimes when you start having a negative thought, it's really easy to have that lead to another one. And then your thoughts start spiraling. And then getting off of that spiral staircase of worry can really feel impossible. So Jean's going to be giving us some tips today on what we can do to get out of that worry spiral. But before we get started, a little bit about Colorado Spirit. Colorado Spirit is our community-driven program that's aimed at providing COVID-19 disaster relief and mental health support to Coloradans. And the program offers free and confidential support, and our clinicians can help you with counseling tips and strategies to cope successfully. And we can also connect you to additional mental health resources that you might need. And we've got trained crisis counselors, and they're here to listen and provide support about the feelings that life during the pandemic, and also as we're coming out of the pandemic, may bring up, such as worry, sadness, hopelessness, or anger. So without further ado, so talking about worry spirals. So when we're faced with the unknown, it's really easy to expect the worst. And then negative thoughts and emotions are a normal part of the human experience, but it's really easy for that to lead to catastrophic thinking and worry spiraling. So, dealing with spiraling thoughts can make us feel overwhelmed, powerless, and can negatively affect our overall well-being. So Jean's here to talk with us about how you can avoid the worry web and combat those thoughts. So Jean, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Julia. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So to start, what are spiraling thoughts?
Spiraling thoughts are a way of thinking. It kind of becomes a pattern, like when one negative thought might lead to another negative thought and then another one, and it keeps kind of building. It can keep going so much, you might start feeling out of control of your own mind. Kind of like your mind has a mind of its own. And it can increase anxiety, fear, stress. It can also feel like your thoughts are twisting out of proportion to what is actually going on. You might be thinking your thoughts are coming in so quickly, it's hard to even keep track of them. It kind of like we call it, it's like a spiral staircase. You keep going down and down and keep taking another step down. It can also be called, kind of as you mentioned, Julia, catastrophic thinking or magnifying. It can be little or it can be big.
Yeah, I also feel like sometimes it can almost leave you feeling like paralyzed, like you don't know how to get off. You don't know how to get off that staircase, and once you're in that worry spiral. So what would spiraling thoughts look like in everyday life? What would be some examples?
And Julia, that's a good point you made. Kind of like the paralyzed feeling. Sometimes I assume another way of thinking about it is being on a treadmill where somebody else has the controls. You keep running, trying to keep up. But then also there's, like you mentioned, kind of paralyzing. You're stuck. I don't know which way to go because there's so many thoughts. And we can have worry spirals about anything, really. Besides feeling it and thinking about those thoughts that are just so troubling, we can also have some physical sensations. So like sweaty palms or butterflies in our stomach, and sometimes our heart pounding. Normally, we don't think much about our heart, but when you start feeling it pounding or your hands are sweating, you think, oh, I must be anxious. So then you start feeling anxious and thinking anxious, and then it just kind of keeps building on itself, and it kind of draws our mind and our attention to more of the example of the things that we're thinking about. And as you mentioned about, what is it like in daily, everyday life, there's a lot of examples that we can use. Sometimes it's like if you're thinking about taking a test or you have a report to do, or you're cooking a meal for a new family member, maybe an in-law. You can say, oh, what if, like the report, what if I don't do it right? What if, my boss doesn't like it and I get fired? So that's kind of the thinking of like that, where it just builds. Julia, right now, kind of, as you know, we hear a lot of it is health related, especially right now as we're coming out of the pandemic. Someone might have a cough, and then you start thinking, oh my gosh, I've got the flu. No, I don't. Oh, it's COVID. Oh no, it's going to be cancer. And it's okay. Wind yourself back a little bit. As you keep thinking negatively, that's kind of like the worry spiral that we talk about, that we all do a little bit, but we want not to let it take control.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is so easy. It is so easy to quickly jump from, to your point, like you have a test coming up and it's like, oh my gosh, what if I fail this test? To then being like, well, I'm going to end up, I'm not going to get into the college that I want to get into if I don't. Yeah. And, or your point, like if you have, a cough, there's so many regular everyday things that it could be, but it's that immediate jump, or even those gradual steps of like, oh my gosh, what if it's, what if it's COVID, and then what if it's this, and then in the end you're like, I've only yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man, worry spirals. I definitely think it's a topic that a lot of people can relate to. So,
Yeah.
so now that we know kind of what it looks like in everyday life, how can people recognize if and when they're beginning to have spiraling thoughts?
That's the big question. And recognition is the answer. It is being aware, paying attention to your mind, to your thoughts, and to your body, and then acknowledging them. So it's kind of like you're saying, like we said, it could be the worst thing ever. It's like, okay, at a point you stop and say, okay, how's that possible? And also notice your physical sensations. Notice it either through your mind and through your body sensations. And like we're talking about, a lot of times this worry spiral starts with what if?
Mhm.
What if this happens? What if I can't do this? And why did my boss say that? So a lot of times it's what if. It can also be why. So as you recognize it and kind of label it, say, okay, this actually isn't happening right now. I'm not getting fired. I'm sitting here at my desk working on my report. So kind of bring yourself back, recognizing that the thoughts have gone too far, have spiraled, and then label them and saying, okay, am I spiraling? Am I worried? Is this reality? So, as I mentioned, just stopping, paying attention, thinking, and also noticing your body, your physical parts that might be responding, and then you can kind of start looking at patterns. Okay, every time I think of my job, I get worried, or every time I pay bills, or I think about finances, I get worried. So you'll start really learning it, and it does take practice. So that's the best way, is just stopping and paying attention and practicing.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. Well, and it sounds almost like, I mean, some of those techniques that you mentioned almost kind of make me think of, almost like meditation in a way of like really bringing yourself back to like the moment, or like being present in the, I guess a better way to say it would be like being present in the moment.
Yes.
It sounds like that's a lot of it, is like, okay, like how are you feeling right now? Like where are you right now? Like what is happening right now? As opposed to that sort of very, again, catastrophic future thinking.
Yes, exactly. And like you're saying, it's meditation, and it's also mindfulness, because when we're thinking of the future, we're not here. We're way out someplace else thinking of the past. That's done. And like you're saying, Julia, being mindful. And how that helps is that it's present. It's right now. it's current, so that you can say, okay, I'm not being chased by the proverbial saber-toothed tiger, right? I'm here, I'm okay. And then also what happens is, as we're in the present moment and being mindful, it kind of helps give our mind space. It helps us to let go of control. And that helps us because it gives our mind a little respite, a little break. If I'm worrying and thinking, phew, it's wearing. It's wearing to think that much and worry that much. So it's important to be able to notice it, to give your mind a break and give yourself a respite, and breathe. Relax your muscles, and knowing that right now I'm being mindful and present.
Yeah, so you mentioned letting go of control, and that's a really good point. So like what can you talk a little bit more about, what that means, how it kind of relates to that spiral thinking and how it can be helpful? I mean, you mentioned it a little bit with, giving yourself a respite, but like what does that really mean to let go of control?
What it means is acceptance and acknowledgement. Like we're talking about, we all have feelings. They all come and they go, and they'll come back, and then we let them go again. It is being able to accept, okay, I'm not going to control maybe every thought, because just being human, thoughts will pop in.
Mhm.
But letting control of I have to take control of every single thought. And so sometimes struggling and pushing against these things, like I'm not going to think that, it will it'll get bigger or stronger. There's a saying that says, what we resist persists.
Mm.
So pushing against it kind of makes it bigger. So one way is the accepting. That's important for letting go of it. Um, Hanging on and trying to control something will give us more worry. There's a couple of exercises I like, is thinking about a conveyor belt. Like you have these thoughts, just let them go in the conveyor belt. And that's a way of letting go of control.
Mm.
Another one I really like is the clouds. We hear about that in meditation. We can do that. Thought comes in, set it on a cloud, and let it go. Let it drift by. That's another way of letting go of control that can help us. Sometimes the worry wind will blow those thoughts back to us, right? So it's like, okay, that's okay. Just put it back on the cloud and let that go. And that takes practice. And as however often you have to keep doing it, just keep doing it.
Yeah, I love those visualization exercises. I think it really helps to sort of, I know for some people that really helps me too, like to kind of let go of things. But I love that the worry wind, that sometimes the worry wind brings them back. And then if that happens, you just put them on another cloud and
Yes.
send them away again. So I love
Yes.
that. I love that. So I guess my next question for you would be, do you have any tips for how people can accept negative thoughts and feelings?
Yes. Just keep moving in the right direction. Just keep taking a step forward. And being easy on yourself.
Mm.
Um, like we talk about the winds, Julia. Sometimes it's a gentle breeze, and sometimes it feels like a gale force wind coming on us. It's like, okay, just take a breath. That's always important. Staying mindful, and just remembering that you're not the only one. So that's another tip. One is keep practicing, using the cloud or the conveyor belt. Another one is accepting, okay, I'm not the only one. That's okay. This, and labeling it, this is a worry spiral.
Mm.
And sometimes journaling, that helps lots of people, being able to write it down on a piece of paper, all the worries, and then you can either throw it away, or you can keep it in the notebook and say, okay, if I need to worry, it's there in the notebook, and just keep adding to it. So Basically, I'm just going to repeat that practice, keep moving forward, noticing them, breathing, acknowledging, releasing it, and then finally replacing that thought with something else that is more comfortable and serves you better.
Okay, so like I guess thinking of that, of the replacing it, so it's almost like you could replace your worry spiral with like a optimistic spiral, like in a way, like instead of worrying about the bad things that happen, you could think about the positives that could happen. Like for the test, for example, like instead of being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to, you know, fail this and have it, have it not work out, you could be like, no, I'm gonna do really well on this. I've studied, I'm good to go, and I'm gonna do well.
Yes, Julia, that is so true.
Yeah.
Because instead of taking the steps down, we can unwind it and take the steps up. And like you're saying, being positive, but also being realistic too. I did study for it. And, it's, you may, and tell yourself it's not the end of the world. That's kind of an overused phrase, but it's like, okay, maybe I do fail. I'm prepared, but maybe something happens and I do fail. What really is going to happen next? I can take the test over.
Mhm.
So, kind of like you're saying, instead of saying, what if I fail? What if I flunk out of school? What if I don't get a job? Think about, take that step forward. What if I do pass? What if I'm the highest scorer on the test? What if then, it helps me with my next test? And what if, so use that what if for your strength and
Mhm.
not for your worry.
Mhm. I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and guess too that probably if you are doing positive what ifs, it's not. Does that help? I guess my question is, does that help you? I would guess that that would help people with not perseverating on it or spiraling, because then it's not a scary thing that we're trying to protect ourselves from. It's like, oh, this could be a good thing, and it's easy. What did you say? It's like easier to let the thoughts pass then. That's part of that kind of positive replacement.
Yes, exactly. Because when I think of worry and I think of worry spirals, my body, I kind of like this. I'm kind of hiding because I don't want anything to hurt me. It's like, oh my goodness. So, then as you start kind of opening up, you think, what if? And um, being positive, you think, okay, why do I have to be positive? Well, it just feels better for one thing. you know. And
Yeah.
um, so that's an important thing. And not being unrealistic. It's like, okay, they say it's going to snow tomorrow, and I'm going to be positive and not wear my coat, but being realistic too. So knowing that the positive helps us to feel better, and actually it helps us to deal more with worry and with reality of things.
Awesome. That's so great. So Jean, we're coming up on time. So is there anything else that you think would be really helpful for people to know about worry spirals?
We've covered it all, Julia, and just kind of as a reminder, take time, practice. Breathing is a good thing, you know, especially mindful breathing. And, if you really have trouble getting out of it and you feel like you can't do it on your own, talk to somebody, family member, Jefferson Center, just and talk with somebody that can kind of help, because sometimes it does help having an objective person to kind of use as a sounding board.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Jean, thank you for taking the time to speak with me and for all of this helpful information. For those of you who have questions or want more information, please feel free to message us here on Facebook and we'll get back to you. And also remember that no matter what you're feeling, you are not alone. And the Colorado Spirit team and Jefferson Center are here for you. And you can give us a call at 720-731-4689 if you need to talk. Thanks and have a great day.
Thanks, Julia.
Yeah.
Bye.